Part 1. For 25 years, Victor Carolyn convinced himself that he had made the right choice. At 28, he had been poor, ambitious, and terrified. His startup was collapsing, creditors were circling, and the woman he loved stood in their tiny apartment holding a newborn girl with his dark eyes. "We'll manage," she had whispered. He didn't believe her. The night he signed the contract that saved his company, he also signed away his past. Investors wanted a clean image, no scandal, no struggling family, no distractions. Victor told himself he would return once he was powerful enough to protect them both. He never did. Instead, he built an empire. It started with one risky software contract and grew into an international tech conglomerate. Offices multiplied, assistants handled his calls, lawyers handled his problems. His schedule became a fortress that no personal memory could break through. Whenever thoughts of his daughter surfaced, he buried them beneath spreadsheets and strategy meetings. "She'll be better off," he would repeat to himself. "When I succeed, I'll go back." But success kept moving the finish line. First he needed stability, then expansion, then global dominance. By the time he reached billionaire status, the silence between him and his past had stretched into something too vast to cross. He stopped trying, until the letter arrived. It was late when the envelope appeared on his desk, forwarded from an old legal address he had nearly forgotten. His assistant had placed it beside quarterly reports, unaware that this thin piece of paper weighed more than every financial document combined. The handwriting was uneven. "Careful, Mr. Carolyn," it began. "Not father, not dad. My mother passed away last winter. She never spoke badly of you. She said you were brave. I hope that's true. I'm not asking for money. I just thought you should know where I am." The restraint in those words was unbearable. She didn't accuse him. She didn't beg. She simply informed him of her existence. The letter ended with, "Your daughter, Alina." Victor read it again and again, searching between the lines for anger. For need. For something that would justify his immediate intervention. There was nothing. Just quiet dignity. For the first time in years, he cancelled a board meeting without explanation. Personal emergency, he told his chief of staff. He booked a flight that night. The town greeted him with winter-gray skies and the scent of coal smoke. Snow clung to cracked sidewalks. Buildings leaned into one another like tired old men. His luxury SUV looked absurd on those narrow streets. Children stopped playing to stare at the polished vehicle. An elderly woman paused mid-step, eyes narrowing at the expensive coat he wore. Victor felt exposed, not powerful. He checked the address 3 times before instructing the driver to stop. A 5-story apartment block stood before him, paint peeling from its surface. Rust stained the balconies. Laundry fluttered in the cold wind like quiet surrender. This was where she lived. His daughter. He dismissed the driver and walked alone to the entrance. The door stuck before finally opening with a metallic groan. The stairwell smelled faintly of damp concrete and old cooking oil. Each step upward felt heavier. He had imagined many versions of this reunion. A dramatic confrontation. Tears. Accusations. He had not imagined silence. Apartment 47. His hand hovered over the door before knocking. Footsteps approached, slow but steady. The door opened. She stood there. Alina. Her hair was tied back simply. No jewelry, no visible luxury, but there was something composed about her posture, something unbreakable. Her eyes met his. "Yes," she asked, politely. The formality pierced him. "It's me," he said quietly. "Victor." Recognition dawned gradually. Her gaze sharpened, not surprised, not emotional. "Evaluating. You're early," she said. The words confused him. "Early." She stepped aside without explanation. "Come in." The apartment was small but impeccably clean. Every item had its place. A modest couch. A second-hand bookshelf filled with medical textbooks and children's stories. A small dining table with 2 chairs. 2. Victor noticed everything. "I wasn't sure you would come," she said, closing the door. "I wasn't sure I deserved to," he replied. She didn't respond. Instead, she walked into the kitchen and poured water into a kettle. "You look well," she said after a moment. It wasn't a compliment. "It's been a long time," he managed. 25 years, she corrected gently. He swallowed. "I thought about you," he said. "Thinking is easy," she replied calmly. Before he could answer, a cough echoed from the other room. It was sharp, strained. Victor turned instantly. "Is someone sick?" Alina's expression shifted, not into fear, but protective alertness. "My son," she said. The word struck him like ice water. "You have a son?" "Yes." He struggled to process it. How old? 7. 7 years. 7 birthdays he never knew about. 7 years of her life he never witnessed. Another cough, weaker this time. Without waiting for permission, Victor stepped toward the bedroom door. Inside, a small boy lay propped against pillows. Oxygen tubes rested beneath his nose. Machines blinked softly beside the bed. The boy's face was pale, but his eyes were enormous, dark, intelligent, curious. Victor felt his chest tighten. The resemblance was undeniable. "Mom," the child whispered. "I'm here, Misha," Alina said gently, moving to his side. Misha's gaze shifted to Victor. "Who's that?" Victor hesitated. Alina looked at him steadily. This was his moment. His voice faltered. "I'm your grandfather." The word sounded foreign in his mouth. Misha studied him carefully. "You look important." Alina almost smiled. Victor stepped closer, kneeling so he wouldn't tower over the bed. "I'm just someone who should have visited sooner," he said quietly. Misha blinked slowly. "Are you a doctor?" "No. Mom says doctors fix hearts." The machine beside the bed beeped steadily. Victor looked at Alina. "What's wrong with him?" he asked, his voice barely audible. "Congenital heart defect," she replied calmly. "We've been managing it since birth." "Managing?" His tone sharpened. "He needs more than managing. He needs surgery," she said. "We're on a waiting list." Waiting list. Victor felt anger rise, not at her, but at the absurdity of it. In his world, there were no waiting lists. There were private clinics, immediate transfers, exclusive specialists. "Why didn't you contact me?" he demanded. Alina's eyes met his, unflinching. "I didn't even know if you were alive," she said. The truth was simple. He had erased himself. He stepped back, guilt tightening around his ribs. "I would have helped," he insisted weakly. "Would you?" she asked. The question hung in the air. He didn't have an answer. Misha coughed again, and Alina adjusted his pillows with practiced hands. Her movements were efficient, gentle, familiar. "You're a nurse?" Victor asked quietly. Yes. He absorbed that. She had chosen a life of service. Of care, while he had chased expansion charts and global influence. "Does it hurt?" he asked the boy softly. "Sometimes," Misha admitted. "But Mom tells stories." "What kind of stories?" "About brave people," Misha said sleepily. "Who fix their mistakes." The words landed like a verdict. Alina brushed her son's hair from his forehead. "Rest," she whispered. Misha's eyes slowly closed. Victor remained standing beside the bed, staring at the fragile rise and fall of the child's chest. He had built skyscrapers taller than anything in this town. But he had never built this. He had never stayed long enough to. "Why did you write to me?" he asked quietly once they returned to the kitchen. Alina leaned against the counter. "Because my mother believed you deserved the chance to know," she said. "And you?" She considered the question. "I wasn't sure." He nodded slowly. The silence between them wasn't explosive. It was heavy, mature, filled with unspoken history. "I can fix this," Victor said finally. "I can get him the best surgeons. Anywhere in the world." Alina didn't look impressed. "I'm sure you can," she replied. "But you can't fix 25 years. The honesty in her voice wasn't cruel. It was factual. Victor exhaled slowly. He looked around the small apartment again, at the careful organization, the modest furniture, the evidence of resilience. She had built a life. Without him. And yet she had still signed the letter. "Your daughter." He felt something inside him crack open. For decades he had believed success would silence regret. Standing in that modest kitchen, listening to the faint hum of a medical monitor in the next room, he realized how wrong he had been. All his wealth, all his influence, and he had arrived at his daughter's life as a stranger. But for the first time since he left that hospital 25 years ago, Victor Carolyn didn't want to negotiate, control, or dominate. He wanted to stay, and in the quiet apartment, beside a daughter who had every reason to reject him and a grandson fighting for each breath. The billionaire understood that this visit was not about money. It was about whether he was finally brave enough to be a father. Part 2. That night, Victor did not return to a hotel. His assistant called twice. The board sent 3 urgent messages. A European partner demanded clarification on a delayed acquisition. He turned his phone off. For the first time in decades, the world could wait. He sat at the small kitchen table long after Alina had put Misha to sleep. The apartment was quiet except for the faint mechanical rhythm coming from the bedroom, a reminder that every breath in that room was fragile, negotiated. Alina placed a worn mug in front of him. "We don't have expensive coffee," she said evenly. He almost smiled. "I don't deserve expensive coffee." She didn't respond, but she sat across from him. Not close, not far. Tell me everything, he said. She studied him carefully, as if measuring whether he would flinch. Misha was diagnosed when he was 3 months old, she began. He gets tired easily. He can't run like other children. Sometimes he asks why. Her voice was calm, but her fingers tightened around her mug. We've been on the national waiting list for surgery for almost 2 years. There are emergencies ahead of him. Younger children, worse cases. We manage with medication, and if he doesn't get the surgery, Victor asked quietly. She held his gaze. Then his heart will eventually give up. The words did not shake. That frightened him more. Victor felt something primal rise inside him, a refusal. A billionaire's instinct to override, to command, to eliminate obstacles. I'll arrange the surgery, he said immediately. Tomorrow. Private clinic, international specialists, whatever it takes. I know you can, she replied. The problem was not money. He could see that now. What do you want from me, Alina? He asked, his voice lower than it had been in years. She leaned back slightly. I want to know whether you're here because you feel guilty, she said, or because you want to stay. The simplicity of the question left him exposed. For 25 years, he had built strategies around uncertainty. He knew how to answer investors, politicians, journalists. He did not know how to answer his daughter. I was afraid, he said finally. When you were born, I was failing. I thought if I stayed, I would drag you down with me. When success came, it came fast. And every year I told myself I would return when I had more control. He swallowed. There is never enough control. Alina listened without interruption. You chose your ambition, she said. Yes. And now, he looked toward the bedroom door. Now I choose you, he said quietly. The words felt unfamiliar, but true. The next morning began before sunrise. Victor stood by Misha's bed, watching him wake slowly. The boy blinked up at him, confused for a second, then remembering. You didn't leave, Misha said. No, Victor replied. I didn't. Misha smiled faintly. Mom says important people are busy. I was busy, Victor admitted. I won't be now. Alina watched that exchange carefully. Not suspicious, but cautious. After breakfast, simple porridge and tea, Victor stepped outside to make calls. Within hours, medical files were transferred. Specialists in Germany and Switzerland reviewed scans. A world-renowned pediatric cardiac surgeon responded personally after recognizing Victor's name. Everything moved fast. Too fast. When Victor returned upstairs, Alina was folding laundry. It's arranged, he said. We fly in 2 days. She froze. 2 days. Yes. She looked toward the bedroom. That's very fast. You said time matters. It does, she replied. But this is still my son. The statement was gentle but firm. Victor paused. He realized what he had almost done, taken control again, turned her life into another executive decision. You're right, he said. We go when you're ready. She searched his face, perhaps expecting resistance. There was none. That was the first moment she softened. That evening, Misha insisted Victor sit beside his bed. Tell me about being rich, the boy said. Victor chuckled softly. It's not as interesting as you think. Do you have a big house? Yes. Bigger than this building. Much bigger. Misha's eyes widened. Do you get lonely in it? The question caught him off guard. Yes, Victor answered honestly. The boy nodded, as if that made sense. Mom says small places are warmer. Victor glanced toward the doorway, where Alina stood quietly listening. She's right, he said. Misha reached out weakly, placing a small hand in Victor's. When my heart is fixed, the boy said, can you come to my school play? The simplicity of the request shattered something inside him. Yes, Victor whispered. I'll be there. Promise. I promise. Alina turned away quickly, blinking back emotion. 2 days later, they boarded Victor's private jet. For Misha, it was an adventure. For Alina, it was overwhelming. For Victor, it was a reckoning. He watched his daughter buckle her son in carefully, explaining each sound and movement so he wouldn't be afraid. She had done this alone for 7 years. No applause. No headlines. No billion-dollar valuations. Just love. Mid-flight, while Misha slept, Alina spoke quietly. Why didn't you try to find us? She asked. Victor stared at the clouds outside. Because the longer I waited, the harder it became, he admitted. Success gave me excuses. Pride kept me silent. And now I'm more afraid of losing you than of facing what I've done. She absorbed that. I don't need your money, she said softly. I need consistency. He nodded. You'll have it. She didn't say she believed him, but she didn't say she didn't. The hospital was immaculate, efficient, quiet. The surgeon met them personally. The procedure is complex, he explained. But his prognosis is good if everything goes as planned. If Victor had spent a lifetime eliminating ifs. Here, he could not. The morning of the surgery, Misha was pale but brave. Will it hurt? He asked. Only a little, Alina assured him. Victor knelt beside the bed. You're the bravest person I know, he told his grandson. Misha smiled faintly. You left Mom because you were scared. The bluntness stunned him. Yes, Victor said quietly. I'm scared too, Misha admitted. But I'm still going. Victor felt tears threaten. You're braver than I ever was. When they wheeled Misha away, Alina's composure cracked for the first time. She gripped Victor's arm unconsciously. He covered her hand with his. I'm here, he said. Hours passed in slow torture. No boardroom had ever felt this silent. No negotiation this uncertain. Alina sat rigid, staring at the double doors. Victor remained beside her, not speaking unless she did. At one point she whispered, if something happens. It won't, he interrupted instinctively. She shook her head. If something happens, I don't want you disappearing again. The fear beneath her words was not just about surgery. It was about abandonment. I won't leave, he said firmly. No matter what happens. She searched his eyes. This time, she nodded. After 6 endless hours, the surgeon emerged. It was successful, he said with a tired smile. He's stable. Alina broke down completely, relief flooding through her like a storm finally releasing. Victor exhaled a breath he felt he had been holding for 25 years. When they finally saw Misha in recovery, tubes and monitors surrounding him, his heartbeat steady and strong, Victor felt something shift permanently inside him. Not gratitude, transformation. He looked at the monitor, at the steady rhythm of a repaired heart, and understood that he had been given something he did not deserve. A second chance. Later that night, while Alina slept in a chair beside her son, Victor stepped into the hallway and made another call. But this one was different. He instructed his legal team to restructure his holdings. A foundation would be created, focused entirely on funding heart surgeries for children who couldn't afford them. No publicity, he added. This is not branding. It was responsibility. When he returned to the room, Alina was awake. You're still here, she said softly. Yes. She studied him, not as a billionaire, not as a stranger. As a man trying. I can't promise everything will be forgiven, she said. I don't expect it, he replied. But, she continued, you can start by coming to breakfast tomorrow. He smiled gently. I wouldn't miss it. He sat down beside her. For the first time in his life, Victor Carolyn understood that wealth was not measured in assets or influence. It was measured in presence. And as he watched his grandson's newly strengthened heart beat steadily through the night, he knew that this time he would not walk away.